Sarah was 52, living in a house that smelled like lemon wax and memories, wearing a coat that had seen better decades. To her brother Mark and his wife Brenda, she was a charity case, a line item in their good deeds ledger. They spent their Friday nights sipping $200 bottles of Cabernet, while Sarah was at the kitchen table, lit by a single bulb, nursing a cup of generic tea and staring at a stack of bills that would make a brave man tremble. But honey, don't let the thrift store sweater fool you. Last Tuesday, Sarah sat in the back of the room during the family's quarterly wealth meeting. That's what Brenda calls their fancy dinner parties where they brag about their portfolios. Sarah sat there, quiet as a church mouse, while they discussed the problem of her mortgage. She heard Brenda whisper, "We have to cut her off, Mark. She's a sinkhole for our inheritance." Sarah didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just reached into her purse and felt the cold, hard edge of a black titanium card they didn't know she possessed. You see, Brenda is throwing a stock portfolio party this Saturday. The invitation list is millionaires only. Sarah wasn't invited, but she's showing up anyway. And she isn't bringing a potluck dish. She's bringing a revelation that's going to strip the paint right off Brenda's gilded walls. Stay close, sugar. Because the woman they labeled Poor Sarah has been playing a game they don't even have the rules for yet. Life for Sarah since David passed hadn't just been lonely. It had been an exercise in humiliation. Have you ever stood in the checkout line at the grocery store, praying the insufficient funds light doesn't blink red while the cashier looks at you with that pitying, "Oh honey" expression? That was Sarah's Tuesday. But the real sting came from Brenda, who happened to be in the next aisle, loading up her cart with organic truffles and imported sparkling water. Brenda looked at Sarah's cart, full of store-brand oats and discounted apples, and sighed loud enough for the manager to hear. "Oh Sarah, let me get that for you. It's the least we can do, considering you can't even afford the basics anymore." Sarah felt the heat climb her neck. She wanted to tell her. She wanted to say, "Brenda, I'm living on this budget because I'm pouring every cent of David's secret life insurance into the most aggressive growth fund on the NASDAQ." But she didn't. She let Brenda pay the $40, tucked her head, and walked to her 15-year-old sedan. She knew that to win the war, you have to let the enemy think they've already won the skirmish. 2 weeks later, Mark called a family meeting at his glass and steel office downtown. Sarah walked in and there it was, a pile of brochures for low-income senior housing. "We've looked at your taxes, Sarah," Mark said, leaning back in his leather chair. "You're drowning. The Victorian is too big for you. We've decided to sell it. We'll find you a nice, manageable studio apartment near the bus line." "You want to sell my home?" Sarah asked. "It's not your home anymore, Sarah," Brenda chimed in. "It's an asset. And right now it's a depreciating one. We're doing this for your own good. You clearly can't manage money." Sarah looked at the brochures. She looked at her brother's expensive watch. A watch she knew was bought on a credit line he couldn't actually sustain. She realized then that they didn't want to save her. They wanted the equity in her house to cover their own mounting debts. They thought the poor widow was an easy mark. The climax of the cruelty came with the arrival of the portfolio party flyer in the family group chat. Brenda posted, "So excited for the annual wealth gala. Dress code black tie. Entry requirement. Verified portfolio of 1 million plus. Sorry Sarah, we'll bring you some leftovers on Sunday. We just don't want you to feel out of place with all the high finance talk." Sarah sat in her quiet kitchen. She didn't respond to the chat. Instead, she opened her laptop. She logged into an account that didn't have her name on it. It had the name of a private LLC. She clicked execute. For years, she had lived like a pauper, studying the markets until her eyes ached, taking the small seed David left and growing it in the dark like a prized orchid. While Brenda was buying designer bags, Sarah was buying the dip. She wasn't just an investor. She was now the majority shareholder of the very firm Mark worked for. Now let me stop right there and ask you something. Have you ever felt like the more you do for people, the less they actually see you? Have you ever had a family member talk to you like you were a child just because you don't flash your success? Maybe it wasn't a house they tried to take from you. Maybe it was your dignity. I want you to take a second and type unstoppable in the comments if you've ever had to survive a season of being underestimated. Because what Sarah did next is the kind of thing we only dream about doing when we're lying awake at 2 a.m. The night of the party, Brenda's mansion was a sea of sequins and false smiles. Brenda stood on the grand staircase, glass of vintage champagne in hand. "Welcome everyone to the winner's circle," she toasted. "In this room we value growth, we value vision, and most importantly, we value status." Just then the heavy oak doors swung open. The room went silent. Sarah walked in. She wasn't wearing a thrift store sweater. She was draped in a floor-length midnight velvet gown that fit her like armor. Around her neck was a collar of sapphires that David had tucked away in a safe deposit box years ago. Behind her walked a man in a sharp gray suit, the most feared corporate litigator in the tri-state area. "Sarah," Mark stammered. "What are you doing here? You don't meet the requirements." "Actually, Mark," Sarah's voice was calm, "I'm the only one here who truly does. Brenda, you mentioned this party was for active investors. I'm here to discuss my most recent acquisition." Sarah nodded to her lawyer, who handed a folder to Mark. "As of 4 p.m. today," Sarah continued, "the Widows Watch LLC has acquired the debt notes for this property. And Mark, your firm? I'm the new chairman of the board. I've spent 3 years watching you two treat my husband's legacy like a personal piggy bank while calling me a burden." The silence was so thick you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. "You called me poor Sarah," she said, stepping closer to Brenda. "But poor is a state of mind, honey. And yours is utterly bankrupt. My husband didn't leave me nothing. He left me the wisdom to stay quiet while the fools are shouting. Now, I believe this is my house, which means you have exactly 30 minutes to clear your status off my lawn." Brenda dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble, a perfect metaphor for the life she'd built on Sarah's silence. Sarah didn't feel the rush of spite she expected. As she watched them scramble, the elite suddenly scurrying for the exits like rats, she felt something much deeper. She felt light. She didn't keep the mansion. She sold it a month later and used the proceeds to start a foundation for women over 50. A place where they could learn to invest, to start businesses, and to never ever be invisible again. She kept the Victorian though. She fixed the roof and kept that single light on in the kitchen, not because she had to, but because she liked the reminder of where she'd been. "Honey, the world is always going to try to put a price tag on you. They'll look at your age, your bank account, or your circumstances and think they know your limit. But they don't see the fire you're stoking in the dark." Sarah's story isn't about the money. It's about the fact that your worth is non-negotiable. If you're in a season where people are counting you out, let them. Let them think you're fixed income, or past your prime. While they're talking, you keep building. You are not the label they gave you. You are the architect of the second half of your life. If Sarah's victory felt like your victory today, share this with one woman who needs to know her power hasn't left her. And don't forget to subscribe to our circle. We don't care about elite portfolios. We care about the wealth of the soul. Keep your heart warm, your mind sharp, and remember, the best is yet to come.